Alright, so I'm walking out in the garage here, and I just recently bought this this Jeep. It is a 1989 Jeep Cherokee, and I bought it because I really needed to get something that was four-wheel drive and that would handle the camping equipment and stuff and getting down to the lake and whatnot. Well, I didn't do any research on Jeeps before I got this thing, and I didn't really care. The guy that I got it from, I got it for a really reasonable price as far as I was concerned and as far as what I was seeing. And it's in really decent shape, again, as far as I'm concerned. And it's not all beat up. It does have a cracked taillight, but I got it for a decent price. All the glass is good, the roof rack's good. It does run. He did drive it over here and drop it off, and I paid him for it right in the driveway. But, you know, it's in really decent shape, again, as far as I'm concerned. And especially for being an 89, it's not all rusted out or anything. Decent tires on it, and you can see my cracked taillight over here. No real big deal. I went and got one of those from the scrapyard today, and that's about to get replaced. But, as it would be, I did get this, and I did start messing around with it, trying to fix a few things, because when I got it, it had, like, I seen the radio was just kind of hanging, and I've got the dash ripped apart right now, but I had the speedometer and everything out, and the all the gauge panel out and everything, because there's just certain things that you could tell someone had, like, here, let me open this up real quick. They had put a temperature gauge in here, and it was just mounted up all weird. But either way, I got to messing with it, and all of a sudden it quit running, and I didn't know why. So I start looking around at, you know, crank no start videos, and I seen everything that I could find on a crank no start, and it told you typical stuff like that I had already planned on doing anyway, like cap, rotor, plugs, wires, which had all been replaced, coil. And, you know, I had replaced those because I do that on just about every vehicle that I get. I don't care how old it is or whatever, I just do it so that way I know it's where it's starting from and I'm good to go. Well, I do all this stuff, and I'm working on a blower motor and whatever, I'll save it for another time. But either way, this thing goes to going and cranking and no starting. But I'm getting fuel, I can smell fuel, and I can see the spark, and everything's working fine. It's obviously getting air. You know, it's just not wanting to go. It'll kind of sputter like it wants to, but then it wouldn't. So, I go through and I check the map sensor, and the crank position sensor, and the cam sensor, and the everything that was listed that you could check, I checked. And you can see I've got a new coil down in here, and all the plugs and the cap and the rotor and everything. I go through it all, and I get a phone call, and I'm sitting here just leaning on this freaking Jeep like this and listening to this person talk to me. And I'm looking back in here, and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. And I'm looking at this throttle linkage right here. And you can see a couple zip ties down in there, and that's what I did to fix it, just to see if it was what was going on. And as it turns out, either someone abused this thing before and I accidentally knocked it loose, or it just was hanging on by its last little thread, or whatever it had. But let me pull this vacuum line here for you so you can see what's going on. And that throttle linkage was just kind of hanging inside. Everybody knows what that looks like, and there's like a little square cutout in that aluminum bracket for them little dog ears to kind of, you know, clip up in there and hold that linkage in place. Well, that thing was just flopping around in there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I've seen this before, for real. This is ignorant, but I hope it works, because I had been messing with this for like 2 days trying to figure out what was going on. And so I grabbed some zip ties real quick and zip tied that thing up in there, hopped up in here, and you know, held it right on the floor and cranked it up, and sure enough, fired right up, because that linkage was not secured in there tight enough, and it was just flopping around and not creating the right amount of tension. Now, I did notice that my throttle pedal it felt weird. It was like a little stiff and a little spongy all at the same time. which kind of led me to believe that something was up, but I just hadn't checked it yet. And if I had not been leaning on the front of the Jeep, just talking on the phone, I never would have seen it. But that right there was my crank no start issue, and it was just the most ignorant thing. But I was watching a video of somebody, and it might have helped me actually, just, you know, subliminal messaging or something. And they said, you know, we're constantly looking for the big things. We're always looking for the big things, like, you know, the coil and the cap and rotor and plugs and wires. We're going for that typical stuff, and then we'd get so frustrated and aggravated that it's not working out when we're replacing all these things. And had I not gotten that phone call and been leaning on the front of the Jeep, looking down in there and seeing that linkage, I never would have thought about that, because it was gassing up and getting fuel. I had gone and gotten a new map sensor and put that in there. I was going over everything. And then not only that, the guy was telling me that this was a 89, that it had some kind of like, and again, I'm not a Jeep person, said it was an 89, but it had a 93 4.0 HO Renix swap done on it. So the Renix engine was no longer in here, and I got looking at it and was like, whatever, I don't know anything about Jeeps. He's probably telling the truth, but he could be lying to me for all I know. Well, as it turns out, anybody who knows anything about Jeeps can probably tell you just by looking at this right here, that fuel pressure regulator, it's not what he claimed it to be, because the way I understand it, on the whole engine swap or whatever, they actually have on that HO head, it has the fuel return and input in the same spot. This has the feed and return into the back. So I am assuming that his information is incorrect. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there's other things you can do that he swapped around, but it also still has the Bendix system inside of it. So I don't know, but either way, like I said, not a Jeep guy, but my first thing after searching around and figuring out a crank no start issue, and having not seen it, I figured I would post this up and show you what I ran into with my crank no start issue, because everything else was fine, everything else was brand new, everything else was working just 100% and running just the day before or 2 days before, and it quit going. And it ended up being that little throttle linkage right there. This thing does start, it does drive, it does run good. It runs a little rich, and I'm trying to figure all that out right now, but for what I paid for it and what it is a dang nice vehicle, I will tell you that. So I hope this helps out. Crank no start issue on an 89 Jeep Cherokee, and this does apply to quite a ways up there. I believe clear up to like 99 is pretty well the same setup. I could be wrong on that, but again, I've been looking around, and it seems like they go quite a ways up there in years, and still being compatible with a lot of parts and a lot of issues being the same. But either way, hope this helps out. If it did help you, like, subscribe, all that cool stuff. If not, hey, whatever. maybe it'll help somebody somewhere. But have a good day, and thanks for watching.